Our guest today is Barry Wunsch, powerful prophetic voice from Canada. Now, Barry, would you mind telling us about this word, about foxes with their tails on fire?
Well, Diana, this happened April 1st. We ended up, we had a little gathering at our home, and we're sitting around the kitchen table, and we're, praying into a few things. And I'm taken into this open vision where I see these foxes running around with their tails on fire, lighting crops on fire. And it was just like the Philistines. Basically it was, they were working against themselves. So anyways, I spent some time, praying into that. Holy Spirit came and he said, Barry, tell my people that Holy Spirit fire has been released upon the enemy's camp and that the foxes are running around with their tails on fire. Victory is assured. Watch as they run about. Watch as they run through their own fields that they have planted, and watch them burn. The harder they run, the faster it will be turned to ashes. Watch what has begun cannot be stopped. For I'm burning away every lie, every deception in this hour. Many have come forward, and many more will come, for they shall move forward with evidence in hand. For my Holy Spirit has been released upon every institution in the land. Oh, the DOJ, the CIA, and the FBI. The House and the Congress will never be the same by the time this is done. There's much more to be revealed. So watch the foxes run with their tails on fire. Ron DeSantis, you're on a slippery slope. The deals you've made in the back room are about to come to light. The covenants that you've made, the allegiances that you have entered shall be your downfall. For the leaks around you are being released, and it will be hard for you to deny. Ron DeSantis, consider your ways. Once again, count the cost. Is this how you want to be remembered? There are shoes that are too big for you to fill, for I have called another to this place. And Donald J. Trump is his name. For he has committed his way unto me, and he's asked for my wisdom, guidance, and protection, and it has been granted. For they can try as they may to take him out, but it shall not happen. For my hand is upon him. For I have called him to stand and to fight for the children, and I've called him to stand and to fight for you. I've called him to stand and to fight for the nations. Others have tried and have been taken out. So Donald J. Trump, you're a weapon in my hand, and together we will strike down the enemy. For it is time for the Epstein files to be released. There is not only a list, but there's much more to be seen. So it's time for the truth to come forth. It's time for justice for my little lambs. So watch as the nations shake, as I expose these evil foundations on which they built, and watch as I bring them to justice. For I'm cutting off every resource that they've had in the past, and their war chest is being overturned. So watch as they start to turn on one another, and it'll soon be every man, woman, and child for themselves. America the Great, watch as the linchpin is about to be pulled. There are things coming apart before they can come back together. America, the home of the brave and the land of the free. You are not going to be restored unto what you once were. You are going to be made new. America the Great, your day of celebration and victory is upon you. So you're about to taste and see of my goodness in this land. For I am lighting revival fires across this nation. The reformation you cried out for, is being released. So it's time to lay down every hindrance and come and behold me, and I will behold you, my beloved. I will heal, I will deliver, and I'll make you new, and I'll embrace you with a love that you have resisted. For I have come that you would have life, and life abundant. So walk with me into this day as we establish my kingdom upon this land. And holy is the word of the Lord.
That is such a powerful and such an encouraging word. In case you missed it, close to the start of the word, when one of those power crunches was coming through, you said the victory is assured. And I wanted to be sure you got that, because the fact that the enemy is starting to burn himself down means the victory is assured, and that's very encouraging. What's also encouraging is to know that President Trump is seeking God and asking him for his wisdom. That's very encouraging. The only other question I have, would you tell people what a linchpin is? Because some people might not be familiar with that term.
Yeah, a linchpin is, when you join a couple of things together that are kind of holding things together, they'll often drop a linchpin to that. And so when that linchpin is pulled out, it will separate things apart. So, things start to move differently than when they're kind of held together. And so there's often a key point or place that the pressure is on that has to go to see movement happen. And so that's what I saw.
That's good. I love it. You do have a word for Canada too. I want to be sure to get that in.
Yeah, so this one here, now this one actually, it not only is for Canada, but it also has ties in, I think, into your nation and others.
Okay.
So recently we were at a national gathering in Woodstock, Ontario for prayer and intercession. It was kind of a rally with the troops during Passover and Good Friday. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to go. My wife's health was pretty low. Mm-hmm. And so we just said, Lord, if I'm trying to go, I need a confirmation. So we had this dear, precious friend come, and we went out for lunch, and we're walking across the parking lot, and she said, the Lord showed me your calendar. It has 2 dates on it that are very important, and you're supposed to be doing something there. And so I knew immediately what this was about. So we went to this gathering. Now, before the night I was supposed to leave, I was up all night and just in a turmoil, and the Lord was knocking on the door, and he kept saying, Roland Buck, angels on assignment. Roland Buck, angels on assignment. Now, Roland Buck, he wrote a book called Angels on Assignment, the testimony of the engagement of the angelic hosts, to make certain things happen. And so as a result, I'm praying, Lord, I pray for those angels to be dispatched for the trip that we're going to. So, their presence came so hard in my room, I just was thrown out of the bed. I get to Woodstock the first couple nights, and it was very turbulent and unsettled in the spirit. And it was actually pretty rough. I had very little sleep, but just carrying a place of intercession, as things were percolating. So anyway, the one morning I had a dream where I was taken into this community of Woodstock, and I knew that there were some very dark and long-rooted evils there, and that they were to be displaced. It was time that they be cut off and removed, not only for the region, but for Canada. So in the dream, I'm taken to an old building, and it was very well built, brick, and it had a very long history. And standing around the building is a bunch of angels, and they're waiting for me. And they're like, there's a pile of them, and they're standing around. And they had gone ahead of me, and they had dug out the old foundation of that old building and exposed it right to the footing. So all these angels, they're just waiting for me to show up, and I jump in the hole, and I'm looking at this old foundation, and in the front cornerstone, there was carved a Masonic symbol within that cornerstone. So I woke up and I thought, that was, interesting. I'm not really sure what to do with it. So we get to the meeting that morning, and I'm met by this dear precious saint, and she came up, and she was from the area. She said, "There's something you need to know. Woodstock is the head office for the Masonic in Canada,
Oh,
and their building is only a couple blocks from here, and there are even tunnels from it to other buildings and at least into one church." So, I had a few others kind of randomly talking to me, kind of confirming the same thing. So we're in worship, and the Holy Spirit comes, takes me into the Spirit, and I see this building with these trunk lines of communication coming out of that building like spider webs across Canada and in other places. And they went to banks, they went to businesses, they went to government buildings, courts and schools, and even many churches. So it was kind of crazy. So at one point I had a call I had to take from an apostolic leader here in Canada that ties us with our friends in Florida. And I walked out on the main street and I could hardly stand up. And flying over me, there are 5 eagles flying right over the church where we're entering, or where we're doing the meetings. And the name of the church is the River Church. So we have these 5 eagles flying over the River Church, and there's an ambulance coming the other way at the exact same time, sirens and lights on. And so essentially, I believe the church is entering into a healing place or revival for some of these that have been kind of trapped and hurt through some of these systems. So anyway, we went in and back into the meeting, and just the whole, it was kind of Davidic worship, harp and bowl, intercession, prayer. And the whole kind of thread of that meeting had to do with foundations. So at the right moment, we had the fivefold ministry. Like, we had equity in the room from the ecclesia in Canada, as well as one American brother was also there with us that had come up. So as hundreds of intercessors and as an ecclesia, we stood in that place and we made the declarations and decrees and intercession to cut off those things of communication through the Masonic places within our nation to bring freedom and confusion and fire into the camp. And so it was something else. And it's not something you just go and do. Like, you just don't go do that by yourself. When you're dealing with this level of spiritual warfare. So I went and I sat down, and within a couple moments, I've got people coming up to me and just sharing, just the importance of how this affected their life and how they could validate, the different parts of what I saw and what was there. And so I've had many messages and emails over the last while here with those that have been victims of SRA, satanic ritual abuse, that have been misunderstood, that have been rejected, that they're so hurt and fractured that the need for healing is great. And so I believe that God is bringing a freedom to those that have been impacted by the Masonic rituals and those in an unhealthy way, and not only here in Canada, but I know this is also an issue in the United States.
yes.
And so I see the Lord is ramping this up, because there's 2 nations right now that are, I think, in the forefront of what has to happen and take place for this global release of revival and wealth transfer and everything that's coming. And those 2 nations are Canada and the United States of America. And so that's why the battle is so fierce for us. Whew. So does that make sense to you?
That makes perfect sense to me. There are rotten things in the foundation that we have to cut off, and they're much more devious than we thought, and they're much more widespread than we thought, much more interconnected.
Yeah.
It's like an evil web, and it has got to be cut off.
Yeah.
Dealt with.
Yeah,
So,
and the Lord is clearly setting things up that way. And, the ecclesia, we have to stand in our place. And, as we come together and those moments open up for that governance to be established and released through the body. We need to
Yes. Yeah, that's so important. And that's why we can't get discouraged or disheartened, because the battle is too important right now. We're almost there.
Yeah.
So don't lay down your sword.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And
all right. There's still amazing words here. Is there anything that you feel prompted would be good to share?
I think that the one that I feel led to share again is a prophetic encounter that I had concerning Taiwan. And, I was taken during a time of prayer and soaking. I was taken in the spirit over Taiwan. And as I was there were millions of angels over Taiwan and had it surrounded from the air. And they had their backs to the nation, and they were kind of circled in a posture of defense. But given the word, they were on guard, and they were ready to go on an offense to defend the nation. So as I was in the spirit looking around at this, I watched there was a military movement approaching from the northeast. And as I could see closer, it was, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. I saw there were fighter jets and there was naval fleets approaching. And this was the biggest drill yet. And the level of intimidation was higher than I'd ever seen it before. The situation was just tinder dry, and it wouldn't take much to light it up. So I was taken up into the spirit again and into a high-level meeting room in China. And so by the spirit, I'm here in this room, and it's a strategic planning briefing room, and they had gathered together officials, and they were overlooking a map of Taiwan, and they clearly had plans that they were wanting to roll out in due time. But there were also some American operatives that were also in the room, and they were men in black, and they had these lanyards, these tags on, bright blue, and they had Biden written and tagged on each one. And
say that again, Barry. What was on the tag?
Biden, as in Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And his administration. And so it was more than apparent that they had been participating and were aware of plans that were unfolding, and that they were playing both sides of the table, and they were going to get caught. So I was taken then into in the spirit into the president of Taiwan's office, and she sat at her desk, and she was on a call with President Trump. And the level of honor and mutual respect that they had, was really astounding. So there were other officials in the room, but I heard President Trump reassure her that he was behind her and in support of the position they held, and that he would do all that he could to protect them from the Chinese Communist Party, who had intentions of starting something that could quickly go very big. So I was taken into the spirit to a Taiwan military base. I was shown hundreds of saints on their faces, on their knees, crying out to God and praying. These intercessors, they would come and go out of that room like shift work, and they just went around the clock interceding for Taiwan and the protection and the destiny of the nation. There was wailing and an intensity and a spiritual authority as the Lord led them. Now, again, I was taken in the spirit, and I found myself in a high tower looking over Taiwan in a city, and there was a gathering of Taiwanese generals, and they wore white, crisp uniforms, and they worked around the table looking over the city and nation, and they knew the weight and the responsibility that had been entrusted to them by the Lord in this day. And they were clearly men and women of God, remnant believers who were gifted to lead an hour. And so they prayed, they strategized, they prayed, every decision and every move they made was as they walked with God. So I was taken in the Spirit again over Taiwan. I saw this misty kind of found a cloud come out of the sky, and it appeared like a golden mist. And as it came down, it was like a golden bubble or dome over Taiwan. And it was clear that the Lord had his hand upon them and a covering. And this thing began to pulse like a heartbeat. And with each heartbeat, wave after wave was released around Taiwan in these golden waves that went around the globe. So I watched families holding one another, crying, dancing in celebration of the goodness and the salvation of God. And it didn't seem to matter what was going on around them. They were satisfied in the presence of Holy Spirit, and they rejoiced with him and in him through every hour. And the Lord spoke to me, and he said, Barry, tell my people that I'm their fortress, and I'm their shield, I'm their protector, and their deliverer. I'm their everlasting strength in times of trouble. Taiwan, you are mine, and I will not forsake you, and I will not let you go. So Taiwan, you are being used by my mighty hand in this hour. There's no way around it. So Taiwan, you will sound the alarm. You will blow the trumpet, and you'll wake up the nations. For Taiwan, you're a catalyst in this hour, and the nations are watching your every move. But Taiwan, my strong and resilient daughter, you've endured much, and you've grown strong in the Spirit. And there shall be nothing that you fear. There shall be nothing that you can't overcome in me and by my Spirit. So Taiwan, you shall expose more than you're aware. For those who've worked against you and spoken with a forked tongue and who have betrayed you shall be brought fully into justice, my justice. So Taiwan, you have my favor upon you in this hour. And as you stand with me and call their bluff, I'll be with you. For they're moving at an accelerated pace, for they have everything to lose, for they know the days are short. So Taiwan, 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 prepare ye the way of the Lord. Hey, and holy is the word of the Lord.
Taiwan is a jewel of a nation, but it's just a little island. But I think we need to grasp the significance that it is very key in this day, in this time in history, and turn our prayers that way and realize there's something going on there that our eyes don't see, but the Father has revealed it to us in this encounter that you have.
Yes, and I'll just leave with this. I had a group out of Taiwan contact me, and they run, I think, the largest Christian TV network in Taiwan and media. And they wanted to talk to me and then just interview me based on what I'd seen here. And they're calling this next Saturday for a solemn assembly across the nation of Taiwan into prayer and fasting. And so they're mobilizing right now to do so. So, for those that are led, the Lord, as the Lord would put it on your hearts, and we need to join with them for the moment and the hour that they're in. So, because what happens over there is most definitely going to impact us here in North America.
Yes.
One way or the other. So on this morning, March 28th, I had a very vivid dream encounter through the night. And basically, I bring this with fear and trembling, out of obedience to the Father. And I mean, I'm encouraged that you picked up on this today, because at the last moment I pulled this out. So what I saw a cell phone go off in someone's hand with a EBS warning and emergency broadcast system. And it looked, as I watched it, I could, it makes that alarm sound, and it flashed on it, warning, warning, warning. And then I heard, I'm looking at this phone, this is an emergency. This is not a test. Find shelter remain indoors, await further instructions. So, and that's, next thing I know, I'm taken in the spirit, and I'm looking down at North America as if from a satellite. And I watched state by state lighting up as the EBS was announced and awakening the nation. It was dark, and it seemed to be done to the early morning hours before daybreak. And as it lit up through the United States, it simultaneously lit up between Canada and Mexico. I was taken in the spirit where I watched SWAT teams and equipment rolling out and being deployed through the nation. Armored vehicles, loudspeakers, heavily prepared special ops hitting the ground. My sense was that they were on assignment to prepare and maintain order, as well as apprehend and arrest nefarious leaders and cabal operatives. They weren't fooling around. Once again, taken by the spirit into an Air Force base, I watched as fighter jets were being put on a scramble and hitting the runways, heading out on missions. Air cover for ground troops, but also on defense. I saw these big radar jets on patrols. I saw commercial air traffic controlled in a lockdown to protect civilians during a very high-level operation that had been years in the planning and execution. There'd be no fooling around, and there would be consequences for those who did not comply, for it was for their own safety and protection, and it was part of the remedy required to execute such an operation. Next thing I know, I was taken far offshore and shown Russian vessels and aircraft in formations, and they were knocking on the door of the United States. There was time still on the clock to avoid a pending conflict. Now, from my perspective, the position they held was being used to enable and force injustice to a corrupt, controlled, cabal American government. I was taken in the spirit again, and I watched an EBS broadcast where President Trump came and he took a podium and he addressed the nations. He was clear and concise with his words, and he brought reassurance to the nation as he addressed the current situation. It was well at hand and under control, and it was well planned, and being executed with exacting precision. The enemy from within was being dealt with here and now, and the time had come to turn things over, and they'd met their match. The fiasco they'd been operating was coming to an end, and justice was being served. The cabal was in trouble, and they knew it. So I was taken again in the spirit into a large conference room, tables and chairs, briefing, planning, and I saw Joe Biden and his administration cowering and hiding away there. A level of confidence in the room was very low, if not completely gone. They were now caught red-handed and trapped with nowhere to hide. Things were closing in on them. The last song was being played, and they were in the final act. Next thing I know, taken in the spirit to an underground chamber in Canada, where I saw federal government leaders from all the parties gathered together. Behind closed doors, they were not fighting one another in the public eye, for it was now evident they were all under the same control of cabal directives that were being briefed on how they were going to handle and spin this in the public eye, and how they could control the narrative. And I knew by the Spirit that their efforts would be futile to control it from here on in. It would not be long until there was full exposure by Yahweh. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me, and he gave me this word. He said, Barry, tell my people the great awakening is upon them, for it is time to reveal the light of my glory to the nations, for I have come to set the captives free. Do you not know that I do not do anything unless I reveal it to my servants, the prophets? Men will come and go, governments will rise and fall, but my word will stand forevermore. For you have been told that you are in a new era, and I say unto you that things cannot remain the same. For those who have dishonored my name shall be held to account, and woe unto those who have beset my little ones and caused them harm. Woe to those who shed innocent blood, for truth and justice shall prevail in this hour. I will not have it any other way. So nation after nation shall turn to me in this hour as they turn from their wicked ways. For they have known me as a baby in a manger, and they've known me as a lamb but they're going to know me as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And there will be men's hearts that fail them in times of trouble, should they not turn to me and from their and to my ways. And I will restore unto you all that the enemy has stolen, and more. Recompense shall be yours, and holy is the word of the Lord.
Powerful, wonderful word. Thank you, Barry, with all my heart for joining us today. This has been encouraging, empowering. Folks, you can find Barry as the Canadian Hammer on Facebook and Telegram, and details about him you can find in those places. Thank you, Barry.